The legends rarely tell the same story twice. This is just one of them. Before the ocean became a place of wonder, before sailors mapped its surface, before humanity gave names to storms, currents, and the dark, there was something beneath it. Not merely a creature, not only a god, but a presence. Ancient, watching, waiting. Its name was Dagon. And depending on which story you believe, he was either one of the oldest gods mankind ever worshipped, or something far worse. Because Dagon does not belong to only one world. He exists in fragments, in broken temples, in forgotten rituals, in drowned cities, in old texts written by hands that are now dust. He appears in the myths of ancient Syria, in the ruins of lost civilizations, in the pages of scripture, and much later, in horror. But no matter where his name appears, it carries the same feeling. Something old, something powerful, something tied to forces older than memory. In the oldest traditions, Dagon was not a monster. He was a god, worshipped across ancient Syria, along the Middle Euphrates, in cities whose names now sound like echoes. Tutul, Turka, Mari, Emar. Places where kings ruled, priests spoke in smoke-filled sanctuaries, and the favor of a god could decide whether a kingdom survived the year. In those lands, Dagon was no minor spirit. He was revered as a lord of the land, a bringer of prosperity, a source of abundance, a force connected to harvest, stability, power. In some regions, he was called the father of gods, not a servant, not a messenger, a patriarch. A divine authority standing above rulers and giving them legitimacy. Kings looked to him not only for blessing, but for the right to rule. To be crowned was not enough. Power had to be confirmed by something beyond human hands. And for many, that something was Dagon. His temples stood in places of great importance. Offerings were made in his name. Festivals honored him. Oaths may have been sworn before him. His cult spread across a wide land, far beyond the cities where his main sanctuaries stood. Men and women alike carried his name inside their own, a sign of devotion so common that even centuries later it still survives in the written record. That alone tells us something. Dagon was not obscure. He was loved, feared, trusted, needed. And yet, for all his importance, he remains strangely silent. Unlike other gods of the ancient world, Dagon left behind no great surviving mythic cycle to explain himself clearly. No complete tale of his birth. No preserved epic that tells us exactly what he did, why he ruled, or what form he took in the minds of those who worshipped him. He stands in history like a figure seen through fog, immense, unmistakable, but never fully visible. And perhaps that is why he became something else. Because when history leaves gaps, imagination enters. Over time, Dagon's name changed, or perhaps the people changed around it. In some ancient languages, his name sounded close to words associated with grain, to fertility, to the prosperity of the land. But later, another association emerged, a dangerous one, a false one perhaps, but powerful. In Hebrew, the word for fish sounded similar enough that later generations began to imagine that Dagon was not a god of land, kingship, and abundance, but a fish god, a being half man, half sea creature, a deity of scales, fins, and the abyss. It was likely a misunderstanding, a medieval invention, a confusion repeated often enough that it hardened into myth. But some mistakes are stronger than truth, because once the image appears, once people begin to see a god with a human face and the body of something aquatic, it does not easily disappear. And Dagon was already close enough to the sea to make the lie feel possible. In the Hebrew Bible, his name appears again. There, he is described as the god of the Philistines. Temples are connected to him, Ashdod, Gaza, and in one of the most unsettling stories, the sacred ark is brought into Dagon's temple. The next morning, the idol is found fallen, face down, before the ark. raised up again by human hands, only to be found fallen once more. And this time, broken. Head severed, hands cut away. A defeated god. A humiliated image. A symbol overturned. But even here, something remains disturbing. Because the text leaves behind a strange impression. Not of simple victory, but of conflict. Two powers sharing one chamber, one standing, one collapsing, as if the old god had met something greater, or perhaps simply older, than his worshippers understood. And even after that, even after kingdoms rose and fell, even after languages changed, even after temples crumbled, Dagon did not vanish. He transformed, as old gods often do, because names like these rarely die. They sink, they wait, and when the age is ready, they rise again wearing a different face. Centuries later, the name Dagon surfaced once more, not in ritual, not in a sanctuary, but in fiction, or at least what we call fiction. In the early 20th century, writer H.P. Lovecraft reached back into ancient memory and took the name, Dagon. But what he created was no harvest god, no royal father, no lord of prosperity. He gave the name to the sea, or rather, to what waits beneath it. In Lovecraft's vision, Dagon became associated with something vast and amphibious, something ancient and inhuman, something glimpsed only for a moment, yet never forgotten. In his story, Dagon, a sailor stranded after war, finds himself upon a stretch of newly exposed seabed, a place that should not exist. A black, slimy expanse vomited up from the deep, a landscape of rot, mud, and silence. As though the ocean floor, hidden for millions of years, had briefly turned its face toward the sun. And in that impossible place, he finds a monolith, an ancient stone, carved, covered in images of things that are almost human, but not human enough. Figures with webbed limbs, bulging eyes, soft, obscene shapes, creatures shown swimming, worshipping, and killing. And then, from the water below, something rises. Not a beast in the ordinary sense, not an animal, a presence, towering, scaled, monstrous. It embraces the stone as if in worship or reunion, and the man who sees it never truly returns. That is the power of Dagon in the modern imagination. Not simple evil, not mere violence, but revelation. The horror of discovering that humanity was never alone, that the sea has always concealed older intelligences, older devotions, older gods. And from there, the myth deepened. Dagon became linked to the Deep Ones, an ancient race of ocean-dwelling beings who move between sea and shore, between human and inhuman, between worship and hunger. They are not dead things. They are not ghosts. They breed. They endure. They wait in underwater cities beneath black waves. In later tales, Dagon is no longer just a name from scripture. He becomes Father Dagon, a vast aquatic patriarch, a deity, or something treated as one, worshipped beside Mother Hydra. And around them grows a cult. Not in ancient Syria now, but in a decaying seaport, a place called Innsmouth. There, the esoteric order of Dagon becomes more than religion. It becomes a bargain. The people receive wealth, gold, fish, prosperity from the deep, and in return, they offer blood, loyalty, secrecy, marriage. Because the deepest horror in the story of Dagon is not that something alien exists, it is that humans welcome it. They do not merely fear the abyss, they negotiate with it, they worship it, breed with it, give themselves to it piece by piece. Generation after generation, the human face changes. Eyes bulge, skin alters. The body remembers something ancient in the blood. And eventually, those who were born on land feel the pull of the sea. They leave. They descend. They go home to a place no human being was meant to survive. And here, Dagon becomes more than a god. He becomes inheritance, a destiny written into flesh. That is what makes him so unsettling. Many monsters attack from outside. Dagon does not need to. He enters through lineage, through worship, through symbols, through dreams, through the ancient human temptation to trade the soul for survival. And beneath all this horror lies something even older, something historical. Because Lovecraft did not invent Dagon from nothing. He borrowed a forgotten god already half obscured by time, already distorted by mistranslation, already suspended between truth and invention. A real deity became a false fish god. A false fish god became a cosmic horror. And the result is something strange, a being with two shadows, one cast by history, the other by nightmare. So what was Dagon, really? A father of gods? A lord of grain and kingship? A Philistine idol? A misunderstood name? A fish god that never truly existed? A literary mask for the fear of the deep, or all of them at once? Because perhaps that is how ancient names survive. Not by remaining pure, but by mutating, absorbing fear, changing shape, following culture from temple to scripture, to story, to screen, to whisper. Even now, Dagon still appears. In novels, games, films, songs, modern myths. Again and again people return to him, not because they understand him, but because they feel something in the name. Weight, depth, age. Dagon sounds like something that should be spoken carefully. Something wet, old, stone-heavy. A name dragged upward from the bottom of the sea. And maybe that is the real reason he endures. Because the ocean remains one of humanity's oldest fears. We sail across it, we map its surfaces, we study fragments of it. But below that thin skin of light, there are trenches deeper than mountains are tall. Pressure enough to crush bone, darkness untouched by dawn. Creatures shaped like mistakes, silence older than civilization. And somewhere inside that darkness, the mind begins to invent. Or remember. A god beneath the waves, a father in the deep, a temple no diver will ever find, columns swallowed by black water, eyes opening in the trench, ancient prayers spoken in a language of bubbles, salt, and hunger. Perhaps that is Dagon's final form, not a single being, not even a single myth, but the shape fear takes when it looks into the ocean and realizes the ocean is looking back. Because Dagon has always stood at the border between worlds, between land and sea, between God and monster, between history and fiction, between what was worshipped and what is feared. He began in the ancient world as a power of kings, land, and prosperity. But somewhere along the way, humanity changed him, or revealed what it truly wanted from him. Not comfort, not harvest, not order, but dread. The feeling that beneath the surface of reality, something older remains. Something that outlived its temples, outlived its priests, outlived the languages that named it. Something patient. And if that is true, then Dagon was never destroyed, only submerged, waiting in ruins below memory, waiting in stories below reason, waiting in the oldest fear of all, that the depths do not belong to us, and never did. Dagon is not just an ancient god. He is what happens when history sinks and returns as nightmare. This is Voices of Mimir, and the deep has only just begun.